Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Today, I have a guest in a trades-adjacent industry. That is, an industry that serves the skilled trades. Mr. Zac Garside is the CEO of Power Selling Pros, who specializes in CSR and dispatch training, an often overlooked importance in these wonderful industries. Zac shares with us his beginnings and his association with the skilled trades as a boy. His dad actually owned a locksmith company, so he saw firsthand the power of the trades growing up. Early on, he also developed a love and skill for public speaking and communication, which he then carried with him to Power Selling Pros when he was a trainer. He has an important message for everyone out there today. Actually, a few important messages, but you'll just have to listen to the episode to hear them all. Now, the one I'm talking about is that the blue-collar trades are only one word away from being the sexiest industry on the planet. And that word that I'm talking about is just. Tune in to find out exactly what that means. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel and on our website at blueisthenewwhite.com to receive all the latest updates. As always, this show's not monetized and we don't run ads. We rely strictly on the word of mouth from our listeners to further the mission. So if you enjoy this episode, please take a second to rate it, review it, and share it. The future generations of tradespeople depend on it. They depend on you. So thank you again and enjoy this episode of Blue is the New White with Zac Garside. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Super excited about our guest today. He comes from a recommendation, if you guys have seen on my show, and I've also been on his show, but Tersh Blissett is such a great guy and a really, really awesome episode. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But he pointed Zac in my direction here, and I am very, very interested in what this guy has to say, and you should be too. So Zac, man, welcome to the Blues and the White podcast.
Thank you very much, Josh. It's super exciting to be with you.
Yeah, man, I'm really pumped to get this thing going. So for the listeners out there that don't know who you are, why don't you go ahead and just kick us off? Tell us kind of who is Zac Garside, where do you come from, and how'd you get to where you are today?
I'm Zac Garside. I'm going to spend my 10th wedding anniversary on a bungalow in Bora Bora. That's the most important thing you need to know about me.
Oh, that's good start, bro. Good start.
That's literally not a plan. Like, I haven't bought tickets or anything. That's still 3 years away. But for the last 5 years, I've been telling people that as my introduction, because I'm like, if I say it, it's going to happen. Like, I'm going to be there on that bungalow. So there you go. That's Zac Garside. I'm the CEO of Power Selling Pros. We train call handling teams in the HVAC industry. I got into this business because I had a thing for public speaking in high school, way back when. And Brigham Dickinson, he's the founder of Power Selling Pros, basically posed me a question one day. He said, what if you could take those skills and actually get paid for them? And I said, that sounds amazing. So I got into training HVAC and plumbing companies to provide insane customer service. I've been doing that for 7 years. I'm the CEO today, and we coach over 1,000 CSRs in the industry to create wow experiences for their customers.
So it's a training. That's what your company specializes in, is training people on how to basically have these conversations.
How to wow the customer. Yeah,
wow,
it's all about the customer experience.
I can't think of a service that's better needed in this industry. That's fantastic. What a great niche that is. And so you did public speaking in high school. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was kind of silly, but I was like, man, I could go way back with you, but basically when I was like 9 years old, I ran for student council in my elementary school. And you had to prepare a speech, deliver it to the student body, and then they would pick, based on the speeches, who they wanted their elected officials to be. I gave a speech. I made sure not to screw up. I didn't want to trip over my words or drool or anything or forget my name, which I did. I was successful in that regard, but I lost the election to a guy who was just electric with the mic. He got up and he was he used so much power and enthusiasm in his voice. He had body language.
We're still talking about 9-year-olds.
That's right. That's right. 9, dude.
Just checking.
So there I was at the young age of 9. And I was like, if I can learn that skill, I can do anything I want in life. And so I did, I throughout like middle school and high school, and then college. At college, I got paid to teach public speaking at my university. And then I, got connected with Power Selling Pros while I was in college to translate those skills to training, right? Because it's not easy for somebody who enjoys that stuff to make a career out of it, unless you want to go into HR, which after watching one too many episodes of The Office, I had no interest in going into HR.
If there's not a true representation of HR out there, No, yeah, that's fantastic. That's really cool. And to your point, don't sleep on that skill, man. That's a good skill to develop, especially at such a young age. I mean, just the amount of opportunity I would imagine that could come from that is astronomical. So very, very cool. So let me ask you this then. I mean, right now you work for, or you run a company, right? That provides these services to these blue collar industries. What was your take on blue collar industries when you were in high school? Did you ever see yourself going in that direction?
My dad actually owned a locksmith business.
Oh, cool.
That's what he did to support our family when I was growing up. He owned a little locksmith business in Southern California at the Los Angeles Harbor cruise terminal, where the giant cargo ships come in, shipping stuff in and out. So he did a lot of security and locks and keys on those ships. And so I saw, I never say that I understand what it's like to run a blue collar company, but I have seen what it's like. And I've seen the toll that it extracts on those who do it. It's my dad paid a heavy price to run a locksmith business. He when we decided to move to Utah when I was a teenager, how are you going to make that happen when you own a locksmith business in Southern California? So for 13 years, my dad flew every Monday morning from Utah to California, and every Friday he flew back so that he could run the business.
Whoa.
It was nuts. Absolutely nuts. So it kind of, I wouldn't say that's why I got into blue collar, because there was actually no connection whatsoever. But as I gained experience at Power Selling Pros working with blue collar companies on the customer experience side, I began to see more and more of what it's like to run these businesses. And I thought it just gave me a greater appreciation for what my dad did. Right. It made me wish a little bit that I had more of the knowledge I have now back then. So I could have maybe helped him. Right. But it is what it is. Yeah,
of course. We could spend our whole life wishing, right? No, but that's great. And I think you're right. You did see a side of it, a perspective that most people don't. And if you're not in, I always say, right, if you don't come from a family that has blue collar roots or a blue collar background, then, your perception of the blue collar trades is probably a whole lot different, right? Which is the whole reason I wrote the book, which is the whole reason I have this podcast. And is to kind of shed light on the opportunities that can exist. Is it easy? No, it's not. No one's going to lie to you and say that it is, right? But the landscape right now is shifting. People are, younger and younger people are beginning to run industries like this in the skilled trades, and it's becoming a different environment, an environment that I think that moving forward we're going to want to market differently, if that makes sense. Of course, I'm sitting here talking to a guy specializing in marketing, but that's my perspective. So let's go a little bit further forward. I don't want to get to the Power Selling Pros aspect just yet. What did you go to college for?
I went to college for marketing.
Awesome. Cool.
And to be fair, college did not prepare me for marketing, though. College, right? No, absolutely not. I knew that college was not going to prepare me for marketing when I was in a marketing class and taking the final exam for the semester, going through the questions. And one of the questions, because these professors are like, they worked in marketing 20 years ago, Right. And they're reputable. They got a lot of experience, but I mean, look how fast it evolves, right? There's certain fundamentals that never change, but one of the questions on the exam was, is social media an advertising platform? And the obvious answer is it is the biggest advertising platform literally in the history of the world. So yes. But the answer the university insisted on was no, it's not. It's an entertainment platform. And that's when I knew, I think we might be a little behind the times here in the university marketing classroom.
Makes sense.
It was it's crazy though. When you talk about, marketing the trades to be more attractive to people, I quit working at Power Selling Pros back in 2019 for a little while because after I finished school, I had several friends going to work in tech. Tech is
that's the thing.
Big, sexy, VC backed, get your stock options, go to the moon, right?
Yeah.
So I had some friends that went and worked in tech and I followed them. I quit my job here at Power Slam Pros and I went and worked at a big financial technology company based in San Francisco. They just opened a Utah office. So I started working there and I quit 4 months in. 4 months in, I was like, this sucks.
Yeah. Why?
Because the thing that so many people in the economy get wrong is they think that because they're busy, they're productive. They're solving real problems, but they're not. I worked in a job for 4 months that the way I saw it wasn't solving any real problems. I was just clocking in, clocking out, doing my time, collecting my paycheck, following orders. The thing that's so amazing about blue collar work that blue collar workers themselves rarely say to outsiders is blue collar workers solve real problems. What more could you want from your career than to literally show up every single day and solve real problems? If the blue collar trades don't work, nothing works. It's cool in my house right now. I feel comfortable. My plumbing works. I've got a beautiful light on above my computer here to keep me lit. That is all blue collar work, like everything we depend on. Yeah. And so I just got so disillusioned with working on problems that I felt like weren't real problems. So I quit and I came back because we're actually, you're doing something in the trades that there's not only long-term impact, there's also immediate impact. How many industries can say there's short-term and long-term gratification simultaneously?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I love the way that you put that. No one on this show, I've had 125 guests. No one on the show has put it like that. So I think my listeners are really going to relate, and that's really awesome. I want to tackle something that you said, just in a roundabout. People who listen to the show, people who have read my book, they understand my standpoint on college. Sometimes it can come across that I'm against college. That's not the case, not at all. I just think that you need to be realistic with the ROI that you expect to gain from college. And that plays right into your point about marketing and kind of how behind the times it was. Now, ROI can come in several forms, right? I mean, you've got hard ROI, you've got soft ROI. In your case here, and I'm just picking up on some of the stuff that you said that the relationship that led to you becoming CEO of Power Selling Pros developed in college. Am I wrong?
Long before that, when I was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Before when I was a teenager doing all this public speaking stuff in high school.
But the relationship that you made, were they in college or before that?
Before that.
Okay.
Yeah. Brigham and I, so Brigham, the founder of the company, his family lived just a couple streets away from my family when I was growing up.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I knew he had this business, Power Selling Pros, but I also knew he was into wrestling. And so when I saw his business card with the word power on it, it was like black and orange. I was like, he probably owns like a powerlifting gym or something. I don't know, something to help wrestlers. Yeah. But it was when I was in college that we finally talked about me,
Understand. Okay. All right. Well, and to that point too, though, there are a lot of benefits to go to college. And that's why I want my listeners to understand, right? Is I'm not super against college because after every episode, somebody inevitably reaches out to me and says, oh, why are you so, mad at college? Like, well, first of all, because it's expensive. And second of all, I'm not mad at it. I just want everyone to be aware. Like, I feel like we sometimes paint this picture to high schoolers and to youth that all they have to do is go to college and then success follows.
Yeah.
Right. When that's not really how it works. Especially, being so ingrained in blue collar work, skilled trades, you don't got to go to college for any of that. Right. And for me in particular, it's provided a wonderful living for me and my family. And, it's awarded me the benefit of taking care of 70 employees and their families. You know what I mean? And so from a reward aspect, and again, you've got to determine your ROI, what you consider success, to make that decision. But there's good and there's bad, but you've got to understand the difference. So anyway, this relationship that you had with Brigham, right? When he made that call to you while you were in college, what made you say, I want to give it a shot?
Wow, that's a really good question. What did make me say that I want to give it a shot? Part one is I needed a job. So part of it was necessity. But the other part of it was it's almost felt too good to be true, right? I can get paid to teach people skills, like communication skills. And I can do it on their time and my time, right? I can meet with the client. Nobody's watching me, looking over my shoulder to make sure I'm doing it. I can call my clients and I can say, what time works for you? Let's get your coaching session scheduled. And then I'd schedule all their sessions, and I could, I was able to create a really, really flexible life for myself. That was the initial reason why I got in. As I became entrenched in it and learned about it, though, it was the purpose. It was the mission. Like you could see that there's a real need for these skills. There's a real need for people to communicate better, to be better listeners, empathizers, to become better at selling and creating value in the world. It's crazy that we live in a world that, because of the internet and travel and all the technology we have, we can communicate with more people in more ways than ever possible. And yet, despite that fact, there is a growing concern that we don't actually communicate. Right?
That's really interesting. I don't mean to cut you off. I have a question for you. So do you think that social media in particular helps or hurts how we communicate?
Oh, man. I mean, it depends on which documentary I watched last week. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix.
I've been meaning to watch it. So many people have told me that I need to watch it. I gotta admit, I'm a little afraid to watch it. Yeah,
dude, you watch that show and you'll be like, we're deleting all the apps. We're going back to flip phones. We're not doing this anymore. No, so like social media can be, of course, a great tool, right? It's what you do with it. Are you going to create or are you going to consume?
Yeah.
And that's the same with all things. Are you going to use it to create something beautiful, or are you going to use it to consume trash? We all fall into the rabbit hole, but like, if it weren't for the internet and social media, I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have you and I wouldn't have met. You and I literally arranged this meet over Facebook Messenger.
I know.
I think what's crazy though is that those tools are so insanely powerful. When you say to somebody, you can use these tools to connect with anybody you want on the planet, it's almost like people don't believe you. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, literally, I could tweet Elon Musk right now and maybe get a reply. He replies to people all the time. I could send an email to Jeff Bezos. He reads them. That dude's known for getting in his inbox and replying to average customers like yourself. People just, it's really about creation versus consumption. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, that's a good answer. That's a really good answer. So I was just curious, from the mind of a communication expert. So okay, cool. So you started to understand this purpose and this mission and the need for these skills, and you got an opportunity. I imagine, did you come in as CEO, or did you come in as a trainer and work your way up? How did that transition?
I began as a coach, coaching customer service teams. So when we bring on new clients, a new HVAC company joins our program, we assign a coach to work with that company, and then we coach each individual person on the team. So I started out as a coach, listening to people's recorded phone calls, giving them personalized feedback on those calls. From there, I got into training other coaches. From there, I got into sales, selling the coaching. Then I became the director of marketing. And most recently, I became the CEO now.
Wow. And how long ago did you become CEO?
2 months ago.
Congratulations.
Fresh.
No, that's awesome. What an accomplishment. And you said 7 years, over the course of 7 years?
Yeah, that's right.
That's fantastic.
Oh, thanks, man.
That's really awesome. And listen, I can't help but point out it's a service that serves the blue collar trades, right? So here we are again, talking about the blue collar trades. And to your point, you can't throw a rock without hitting something that's a result of these trades. Everything that you're looking at in my view here, and everything that I'm looking at in your view, and they do need trades adjacent is what I like to call them, trades adjacent industries, like yours, and software companies that specialize in, blue collar industries and stuff like that. So I think it's very, very important work, and much easier to see and connect the dots as to the difference that you're making, right? As opposed to, some of the other jobs that are out there, careers that are out there.
Yeah. Well said.
So I'm curious, you've probably, if I'm not mistaken, right, you've been in and around a lot of different blue collar trade related companies.
Mm-hmm.
What do you find when you're coaching these people, when you're talking to these people? What do you find among these blue collar industries that intrigues you about them?
What intrigues me? Let me tell you a story. Have you ever seen Hotel Hell with Gordon Ramsay?
No.
Do you know who Gordon Ramsay, the chef?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
So he had the show Hotel Hell, where he goes to hotels that are in shambles. Business is falling apart. Family that owns the hotel is just fighting. There's no harmony. There's no peace in the universe. And he shows up, he tears them down, tells them all what awful people they are, and then he builds them back up. There's this one episode of Hotel Hell where he goes into the hotel kitchen and he orders an apple risotto. When he tastes the apple risotto, he says, "What a pile of," cusses it out, marches down to the kitchen like he's out for blood. And he says, "Who's the head chef? Who's in charge here?" And everybody's kind of pointing fingers at each other, right? Like no one wants to take ownership. Finally, the owner of the hotel says, "Oh, well, it's a mutual effort. We all work together." And Gordon Ramsay can't believe it. He's like, "What do you mean? No one's in charge? No one is responsible for the mess that I just ate?" The guy who actually is the head chef walks out of the kitchen, starts crying. But he's not crying because Gordon Ramsay got mad at him. He's crying because everything that he cooks, the owner of this hotel makes him cook everything from cans, makes him reheat all the leftovers. His apple risotto is made with apple concentrate from an apple juice jar. It's all just canned goods. He's not creating any real magic with his cooking. And that brings him to tears because he's got 2 little kids at home who think he's Superman. He is their hero. And so when he goes home to these little kids who admire him and worship him, he feels like a fraud on the inside. He feels like, "You shouldn't be proud of me, kids. All I do is cook canned goods. All I do is reheat leftovers in the hotel kitchen. I'm just a cog in the machine." What intrigues me about the trades is this just mindset. For the people who answer your phones, it's, "I just answer the phones." For the guys who go out and do work in a customer's home or in a customer's place of business, I just work on the equipment. I just do installations. I just fix plumbing issues. I'm just a plumber. That's what intrigues me, is that if you can change that one little mindset, that one little word, like eliminate just. The CSR is not just a call handler. They're the first impression of the business. They might be the only person today that customer has a real meaningful conversation with. That technician is not just a tradesman. He is an expert at making people feel comfortable and safe in their homes. That's what intrigues me. It's that blue collar workers don't see the impact, because when we talk about tech, big, sexy tech, and the only thing separating these two industries in reality is that one of those industries thinks they're the shiz and the other actually is, but doesn't realize it yet.
Wow.
That's it. If you just make that mindset shift, everyone's going to start working in the trades. All the college students at the career fair, they're going to start working for plumbing and HVAC companies because they're going to realize not only is this the quickest path to wealth, it's the best long-term path to wealth. I could actually get ownership in a business rather than be a cog in a machine. That's what intrigues me.
Yeah, that's probably one of the best answers I've ever heard. So you can hang your head on that. No, that's really good. I like that a lot, that just mindset. And, that resonates. I gotta say, because I've heard it. I've heard it in industries like mine. I've heard it in my industry or in my company,
Yeah.
and you're absolutely right. So how do you fix that?
As you can tell, I like to tell stories.
Yeah.
I love telling stories. I also love asking people questions. People, when someone says something like, we coach customer service teams, and it's the first thing everyone tells us, right? Is, well, I'm just a call handler, or they're just the customer service department, right? They quit and leave anyway. The best thing is to just say, tell me more, help me understand a little bit better where that's coming from. Like, what led you to think that way? And then and then ask some more questions. What if you didn't see yourself that way? What if you have the opportunity to create an experience so good that customer literally hangs up the phone and goes and tells their spouse about it or their friends about it? Like, what if you knew that by me doing a great job today, I'm actually not only solving a real problem, but I'm improving someone's life and livelihood. We had a CSR we coached who got this mindset. She realized, like, 50 people call me every single day with their problems. Let me make it worth it to talk to me. What if I started treating myself like part of the product? And so she starts creating these amazing experiences over the phone. One customer comes into the office just to meet her and says, I just wanted to put a face to the name. I just needed to know who was the person on the other end of the phone helping me all this time. It's about experience. It's about, I like to tell people stories. I like to ask them questions, get them thinking differently, but more than anything, I like to challenge them to do something. When people say to me, yeah, that's never going to work, I say, fine, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong, but neither you nor I can know for sure until you try it. So if you try it for the next 2 weeks, every single time you go to a customer's home, every time you go to a customer's place of business, every time you answer that phone call, every single time for 2 weeks, and you don't see a difference in your results, I'll eat crow. But I know that's not going to happen. I know that you're going to have some powerful experiences if you put your heart into it, and you're going to make more money.
Interesting. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. And that resonates with me, right? I'm a question guy. That's why I host a podcast, but it's true. And I think open-ended questions are the best way to get through to anybody on anything. Not the yes or no questions, the what, why, how, and to your point, tell me more, help me understand. I'm wondering, that kind of stuff. There's power in that, so my next question was going to be, what's the buy-in when you come into, I imagine some of the companies you walk into are in shambles, right? I mean, I've heard some of these CSRs on the phone, some that could probably use your coaching, you know what I'm saying? And so, what I'm talking about. How is it, what's that buy-in like? Do you get it right off the bat? Does it take weeks? Does it take months? Help me understand.
That's a great question. Obviously it depends, right? Obviously every company's different. But there's this guy on our team, his name is Stephen Dale. Stephen is, I wish he was answering this question right now, because this guy is a wizard at exactly what you're talking about, right? I've been the marketing and sales guy. I like to represent the company and invite people to come and take part in this movement. Stephen's a practitioner. He's one of our trainers, and this guy goes out and he went to visit a company 2 weeks ago, a pretty large company on the East Coast, 20 people in their call center that he was training. And you usually with the team that big got like a 50-50 split. You've got some people who are open-minded, ready to learn and grow. You've got another half that are like, what are you going to teach me? Dude, I've been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah.
By the end of it, there wasn't a single person in that call center that had any doubt that this was going to work. That had any doubt that creating the best customer experience possible is the way forward. And Stephen is so gifted at getting to that place by diving deeper with people, by really understanding like what makes you think that way. Have you ever considered the fact that you are not the customer? That maybe you don't want those things, but you talk to 100 people a day who do. And he plays example phone calls of some of the best CSRs in the industry. And people hear those calls and they're like, holy crap, I didn't even know that was possible for a customer to be that happy talking to their HVAC company. It's just that if you can get to that breakthrough, that epiphany moment, right? The aha, then it happens really, really fast. Sometimes it takes a long time. Some people don't get it until they realize their job's on the line and everybody's outperforming them suddenly. Kind of the stragglers, right? Eventually, the core group of people are going to get it and they're going to start to grow. But your stragglers, they're either going to say, okay, fine, and they're going to get with it, or they'll remove themselves because they realize I don't fit here anymore. And that's a sad moment. You never want anybody to not fit in with the rest of the idea that the company's getting on board with, but it's a process, man, for sure. It's
business, and people, there's been a lot of buzz lately around culture and values and stuff like that. And rightfully so. Right. And, my company is no different, but, some of the things that are echoed are absolutely true. There's such a thing as the wrong person on the wrong team.
Yeah.
And I imagine that some of what you guys do will flesh that out a little bit. If that's not innately who somebody is, then, ultimately the company will be better off and they'll be happier somewhere else. Totally.
Yeah. That happens all the time.
Yeah. So, wow, this is super, super interesting. So tell me, like, what does first of all, no, let me ask this question first. Do you do residential and commercial companies, or just residential, or just commercial?
We do both. Most of our clients are residential. It's probably like an 80-20 split.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. We're starting to work with a really big commercial company next month, which I'm pretty excited about. Be a little bit of a challenge, right? Because commercial companies got a lot more nuance, I guess, to the customer experience. It's not as straightforward as, okay, let's send somebody out there and fix it. There's more parties involved, approval processes.
Yep. Quoting processes. You could have multiple points of contact. See, I do commercial only. I don't do any residential at all. So, that's one of the reasons I'm asking, and also I would imagine one of the biggest differences is the mindset, right? Because when you're dealing with business to business, B2B over B2C, that's got to change a little bit of the psychology depending on who you're talking to.
For sure. We try not to get into those differences until the team understands the foundations first. Because one thing we don't want to do, every client we work with, residential, commercial, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, you name it, every company starts off by saying, well, let me tell you why we're different than everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's true, right? But if we immediately feed that and start to like validate those concerns that this won't work, then it's not going to work. We have to start by laying out, okay, no matter what type of business you're in, we've done this with like retail clothing every once in a while, is there are certain principles that are at play in every single customer conversation, B2B, B2C, you name it, because no matter what type of business you're in, you're dealing with human beings. So there are certain principles that are always at play. So we start there with the foundational principles of creating wow experiences for the customer. Then once we understand those foundational principles, then we can start to get into the specific applications and areas of concern.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And getting really down into the nitty gritty. But yeah, the fundamentals, they have to translate, I would imagine, because humans are humans. right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. So, can you explain to me and my audience, because I'm sure everybody's got, their own opinion or own definition of what good can come of this, but from your perspective, from what you've seen, from what you teach, what does having a rock star CSR team do for your organization?
Great question. I have found there to be pretty much five main things. For some companies, it's all five of these things. For some companies, it's some of these things. But number one, this is particularly relevant on the residential side. It's why most people start working with us, is your booking rates go up. Before your customer service team really cared about the wow experience, they were booking 50, 60% of their calls. Now they book 80 to 90% of their calls, and you can do the math on that, right? For how much your average service call is worth. That's number one, is you make more money, you sell more services, you book more calls because customers like you better. Number two is the customer experience itself improves. You get better reviews, higher customer satisfaction scores. Your team enjoys the work better because, let's just face it, it feels better when the customer compliments you and is happy with you. Those are the top two right there: is increased booking rate performance, increased customer experience. Then you've got team consistency is a big one. When your team grows, you want to have everybody on the same page, speaking the same language. If Bob answers the phone and it's terrific, but Sally answers and it's terrible, you got to try to get those people on the same page in terms of how we communicate with the customer. That's another thing that really helps companies, is just having a consistent approach that's not overly scripted, but is still based on the same principles, so that no matter who you're talking to, you're going to have a great experience. Number four is saves you time. It's just when you have a line of people at the customer service supervisor's desk, like, what about this situation? Hey, I got a question about this. Hey, what should I do here? What your team lacks is confidence and self-reliance. And so teaching them these principles and skills helps them become more confident, more sure of themselves. There's less of a need to go get in line. This is all in all the big call centers, right? There's always a line of people at someone's desk. Let's make that line shorter. Let's let people focus on what only they can do. Make people more confident on the phones. That's especially true in the commercial sense. With commercial companies, it's really all about the confidence in the customer experience with most of them. And then finally, number five, this one's silly, but it's one of my favorites. It's called the cool uncle effect. You've got companies that have been like preaching this stuff over and over and over and over again, and they just feel like no one is getting with the program. Finally, you get some third party in that says the same thing mom and dad have been saying the whole time, and everyone's like, it's brilliant, right? Cool uncle effect.
That is amazing. That cool uncle effect. And I need people to really understand the power of that too. So I never put a label to it. This cool uncle effect really kind of hits the nail on the head there. But I'll do the same thing. I'll preach something to my leadership team over and over and over again. And sometimes I feel like it's falling on deaf ears. And then I bring in somebody to say the exact same thing as me, call them a guest speaker, and suddenly it's an epiphany.
Yeah. Amazing. Like, yeah.
So
whatever.
and like every other business owner out there, I don't care. We don't care who gets the information to them, as long as it gets there. No, that's really cool. Very, very good answers and intriguing. I can definitely see how that could level up a company, especially, this team consistency thing. That's something that we see. Everybody comes in, it's a big buzz right now about getting people in the skilled trades, right? Whether it be a technician or whether it be a CSR or other admin or whatever, it's a tough industry to find quality people and to keep quality people, and consistency is a big thing. People come from other softwares, other terminologies. They don't talk the same language. It gets really confusing, and that consistency is so valuable, when it's across the board. So, all right, that's awesome. All right, I've got one more question for you, but before I do, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Because we're going to move to wrap this up pretty soon.
Oh, the only thing I like to add with and finish off with is you know, I think you mentioned at the beginning, customers no longer compare you to your direct competition. They compare you to the best brands in their lives. And they decide whether or not to give you their loyalty. Again, B2B, B2C, I don't care. They decide whether or not to give you their loyalty based on how they feel about the interaction with you. It's not the price. It's not the brand. It's not the speed of service. All those things are nice to have. The customer wants them, of course. But it's ultimately how they feel about the interaction with you. Companies, when there's a downturn, always find something to blame. You know, like it's e-commerce, it's the internet, it's the pandemic, it's this, it's that. But the companies that make customer service their highest priority, you never see them complaining about that stuff. You didn't see Chick-fil-A complaining about anything when the pandemic hit. In fact, they were trying to figure out how to deal with the 30-minute long drive-through lines. You didn't see Costco complaining about the rise of e-commerce. They got a cult-like following. Yep. It's how they feel when they interact with you that determines if they give you their loyalty. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's a really good point and a powerful statement. You know, I think I even mentioned to you before the show that being compared to not their direct competition, but every other brand that they deal with, that's real. And that's happening in this day and age. And there's no stopping it. So you can resist it or you can accept it, you know, and the choice is yours, but it is happening regardless of how you feel about it. Right. All right, cool. So I have one more question for you. I talk on this show a lot about success, right? And we talked about it a little bit earlier that people define success differently. So I'm curious, Zach, for you, how do you define success? And how is what you're doing now helping you achieve that?
Wow, that's a great, I feel like I've used the term, that's a great question 10 times on this episode. Success. I'll tell you another story. How's that? I'll end with that. I was at the park with my kids a couple months ago, and my son, he's 5. My daughter, she's 3. My son knows how to ride his bike. 2 wheels, no training wheels, super proud of it. And he's always, you know, testing out new things, see what he can do with his bike. My daughter's trying to learn how to ride a bike. She's not quite there yet. So we're at the park one day, and my daughter falls over on her bike, down on the ground. So as a parent, you're watching, go, what's she going to do? Is she going to cry? Am I going to have to run over there and help her? You know, or is she going to cause a scene? Like, is everybody going to kind of look over what's going on over there with the little girl who's screaming? My 5-year-old son, though, he runs over, unbeknownst to him that anyone was watching. No one asked him to do it. No one told him what to do. He just saw his little sister down on the ground in need of help, and he ran over and he picked her up, got her back on her bike, gave her a push, hopped back on his bike, and carried on as if nothing happened. What we call that at Power Selling Pros is we call that winning the moment, doing what's right over what's easy and what's best over what's best for only yourself. I don't want anybody to determine the success of my life and career by what I did. I don't want anybody to look at me and be like, wow, you're the CEO of a company. Great job. Like, I want people to look at my kids when I'm gone. I want them to look at my children and their children and their children and measure my success by the kind of people that they became.
That's a really good definition of success, Zach. I like that.
Thanks, man.
No, that's really great. Awesome. What a perfect spot to end. Powerful ending, powerful statement. So Zach, before we say our goodbyes, where can people find you? Where can people find Power Selling Pros? Tell us.
Yeah, go to, this is a link we only share with people who hear us on podcasts. Go to powersellingpros.com/free, FREE. We only share that with people who hear us on podcasts. You go there, get some free customer service training samples, and join my email list. I know people don't like email lists, but this is not your ordinary email list. It's like a daily sitcom with new stories and lessons every day. So go to powersellingpros.com/free. Get yourself some free training samples. That's how you can stay in touch with us.
Awesome. Thank you very much, man. And I'll put that link in the description as well. But Zach, thank you for spending your valuable time on the Blue is the New White podcast and sharing with our listeners all of your successes and accomplishments and the purpose and mission of your company, and of course, all the great people in these great industries.
Thank you very much, Josh. It's a pleasure.
All right. Take care, Zach.